For this next video lecture, so the topic that will be discussed is about the engagement acceptance, still under module number 1. Okay, so a practitioner will accept an assurance engagement only where the practitioner's preliminary knowledge of the engagement circumstances indicates the following. Okay, letter A, there is relevant ethical requirements to be followed, such as independence of the practitioner and professional competence will be satisfied. So in the performance of an assurance engagement, the practitioner is required to be independent, meaning to say their opinion, the expression of their opinion will not be influenced, especially by the management in whatever means, directly or indirectly. So here, the practitioner will perform his duties and responsibilities without bias and will perform and follow the guidelines set by the standards and report or express the opinion that is relevant and based on evidences that he gathered from the management, okay, to satisfy the opinion that is being given. So here, aside from independence, so the auditor should also be competent, meaning they are qualified to perform assurance engagement services. Next is the engagement exhibits all of the following characteristics. Okay, so here the subject matter is appropriate, meaning to say the subject matter is measurable or it can be evaluated using an appropriate criteria. And the criteria to be used are suitable also and appropriate and are available to the intended users for reference. Okay. So another is the practitioner will also have the access to the sufficient appropriate evidence to support his conclusion. So again, before the practitioner can express an opinion, he should have gathered an appropriate and sufficient amount of evidence to support his opinion. Okay, because without the evidence, the opinion of the practitioner will not be reliable. Okay, so this is the proof that he needs to provide so that his opinion will be solid and without any bias or to become reliable. Okay, so the next is the practitioner's conclusion in the form appropriate to either reasonable or limited. So we've discussed this types of assurance engagements in our previous video lecture. So that should be contained in his written report or in the auditor's report, in independent auditor's report. Okay, so the conclusion should be suitable or appropriate, and it must follow if he performed a reasonable or limited assurance engagement, because in reasonable assurance engagement, the auditor will express a positive form of opinion or conclusion, whereas under the limited assurance engagement, he will be expressing a negative form of opinion or conclusion. Okay, next, the practitioner is satisfied that there is a rational purpose for the engagement. So that is basically to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended users about the subject matter at hand. So if there is a significant limitation on the scope of the work of the practitioner, so it may be unlikely that the engagement has a rational purpose. So again, if there is any limitation as to the scope. So meaning to say, here, the practitioner will not be able to access the documents or the people that he needs to interview to support his opinion later on. So that will affect the quality of his conclusion. So if that is the case, then it is said that the engagement has no rational purpose. So there should not be a limitation on the scope, okay, in order for the practitioner to accept the assurance engagement. Okay, next, also, a practitioner may believe that the engaging party intends to associate the practitioner's name with the subject matter in an inappropriate manner. So if this is the case, then the practitioner will not accept the engagement because when performing an assurance engagement, the practitioner should be independent and his name should not be associated in an inappropriate manner. Okay, so those are the requirements of the practitioner before he can accept an assurance engagement. So those are the prerequisites. Okay, so when a potential engagement cannot be accepted as an assurance engagement because it does not exhibit all the characteristics which we have mentioned in the previous slides. So the engaging party may be able to identify a different engagement that will meet the needs of the intended user. So if, for example, one or more of those prerequisites are not met, okay, under this engagement proposal, then probably a different engagement is needed to be performed to meet the needs of the intended users. Meaning to say, assurance engagement is not an appropriate engagement in this case. Okay, so here, these are the cases where the original criteria were not suitable. An assurance engagement may still be performed. So there are, we have the general rule, but we also have the exemptions. Okay, that will, however, if the criteria or the prerequisites were not met, however, this some instances are present, we may still perform an assurance engagement. Okay, so number one, if the engaging party can identify an aspect of the original subject matter for which the criteria are suitable. So meaning to say, this unsuitable criteria will become suitable, okay, because we will change the subject matter that relates directly to that criteria that the practitioner will use in evaluating the subject matter. Okay, and the practitioner could perform the assurance engagement, okay, because we now corrected the inappropriate element. Okay, the next is, in such cases, the assurance report makes it clear that it does not relate to the original subject matter but to the revised subject matter, or alternatively, or an alternative criteria that is suitable for the original subject matter will be selected. So in this case, we will use the appropriate criteria for the subject matter. So correcting the unsuitable criteria. Okay. So the engaging party may request an engagement that is not assurance if it will not be resolved. For example, the subject matter is not changed, or the criteria is not suited for the subject matter. So what the practitioner will do is to engage in an engagement which is not assurance. Okay, so they can do consulting or agreed upon procedure engagement and not assurance engagements. Okay, so having accepted an assurance engagement, the practitioner may not change the engagement to a non-assurance engagement. Of course, in the first place, what they have agreed is assurance engagement, or from a reasonable assurance engagement to a limited assurance without reasonable justification. So, meaning to say, whatever the the party who requested for an assurance engagement and the practitioner agreed, okay, on the engagement letter, that should be followed. It will not be changed unless there is reasonable justification for the change of the scope or the type of engagement. Okay, so a change in circumstances that affects the intended user's requirements, or there is a misunderstanding concerning the nature of the engagement. So, justification will be needed to be requested for a change in the type of engagement to be performed. So if such change is made, the practitioner does not disregard evidence that was obtained prior to the change. So meaning to say, in this case, the change was done after the acceptance of the engagement and the auditor have already started gathering the evidence. So this is how it should be done in case of a change. Okay, so those are for the acceptance of engagement.